playoff spots up for grabs, 4 divisions still to be claimed. We got a lot of games to get through, so let's get right to it. By the end of Sunday, we'll have the clear playoff picture. But we start with some Saturday football, guys. Panthers-Bucs. Bucs laying 2.5, total at 44. We saw this open at 3.5, so some money the other way. We saw this matchup 2 weeks ago. Panthers won it by a field goal. Atlanta's win over the Rams on Monday made this a little bit more interesting. Now the Panthers can clinch the NFC South and playoffs with a win or a tie or an Atlanta win. And now the Bucs, who started the season off so strong, only have one path to the playoffs, and that is win and an Atlanta loss. RJ White, how do you approach this game?
Yeah, I wish I would have had the 3.5. I didn't get the 3.5. I did take it at 3. I like Carolina in this game. I would play it at 2.5 still, but I'm going to tease it up. I'm going to have a Saturday teaser where I'm taking both underdogs up over this 3 and the 7 to 8.5 for Carolina and 7.5 for San Francisco. Baker Mayfield on the injury report, shoulder and knee issues. Tristan Wirfs, if he's out again, that's massive for that offensive line. They were very bad last week in protecting him. So I think with the 2 teasable numbers, you just tease them up. But I think Carolina will win this game, especially if Wirfs does not play.
Yeah, I'm on the Panthers as well. Look, I think there's a pretty simple formula for betting on the Carolina Panthers. You alternate. You bet on them 1 week, You bet against them the next week, and then you bet on the week after. And I do think that Carolina probably went into that Seattle game. I mean, they knew, obviously, if they won and Tampa lost, they would get in. And they were certainly trying to win. I mean, no doubt about it. But I think that this game has always been circled for like a month now as the game that was going to define the NFC South. Of course, the Falcons and the Saints can change that, but Carolina won't know. And I think Carolina right now is a bad matchup for Tampa, whose secondary is leaky. Ted McMillan should be back and fully healthy. He was sick for that last game, didn't do much against the Seahawks. And I think Bryce Young gets going against the secondary. And Baker Mayfield, as RJ mentioned, banged up behind a bad offensive line. I don't like fading him in a clutch spot, but I do think Carolina gets the job done and limps in as hosting a playoff game.
The biggest injury in this game is Jamel Dean. He is the best corner on a really bad secondary for Tampa Bay. He leaves that game against the Dolphins late. He's not practicing as we record this, which just makes the matchup so much better for Carolina because Tampa Bay is not getting any pressure. They've been up 17 passing touchdowns in the last 8 games. So I agree with the guys, and I'm giving kudos to RJ for getting the 3. But even at 2.5, I would still play it. This is a Tampa team that has not covered in their last 8 games.
All right, we're all on the same page, which is usually the kiss of death, but I don't think it will because even with the Bucs getting healthier, they're still losing games. I don't know how they did a 180 from the start of the season. I agree. Bryce Young, that being said, hasn't looked spectacular. Baker Mayfield hasn't either, though, and he's not fully healthy. So for that reason, I'm going to tease the Panthers, get him up over a touchdown. I pair him with the Rams. It just makes me feel a little bit better. But you're right, Will Brinson. 10 straight weeks right now for the Carolina Panthers where they've alternated the wins and the losses, which means they're due this week. All right, let's move on to who do we got now? Seahawks-Niners. Seahawks laying 1.5. I'm like, who's next? This is a pretty big game because it's going to determine the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. Both squads riding a 6-game win streak. Larry, you're looking at the Seahawks on the money line.
Yeah, I think the short week really plays to the advantage of Seattle, given you have Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle all dealing with injuries. Yes, we can probably expect all 3 to be out there for the Niners. But if you look at this 6-game win streak for the Niners, the offense has looked great against the really bad defenses. In the decent defenses they played, Cleveland and Carolina, they averaged 3.9 yards a play and 4.9 yards per play. Now you're playing the best defense in football, a defense that just held Carolina to 2.7 yards per play. So I think it's going to be a lot tougher for this Niners offense. They're not going to look like they did against the Bears. And yeah, Sam Darnold crumbled in this exact spot last year with the chance for the number 1 seed, but he's not going to be under pressure. The Niners have such a low pressure rate. I'm going to take the Seahawks. I'm going to play them on the money line just to be safe.
Yeah, I think Seattle's going to be a really popular pick, like in Circa and everything this week, because, quite frankly, they are the better overall team just in terms of health and what they can do on defense. Mike McDonald has had this defense playing at I think top 2, top 3 level, bare minimum all year long. Having said all that, give me Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's like running 2 scores in. He's hitting the Dougie or whatever the hell he's doing in the end zone. He looks electric the last 2 weeks. He's operating this offense at maximum efficiency. He's getting the most out of Demarcus Robinson. Jawan Jennings making huge plays. And Kyle Shanahan is just straight up in his bag right now in terms of play calling. No George Kittle, no problem. Jake Tongas goes out there and has a great game. The Trent Williams thing is definitely one to watch, but I mean, the offensive line played really well even with Williams not out there. So, I get that the logic all points towards the Seahawks. I'm tossing logic out the window, picking up the banana phone. Don't ask me why I have a banana phone. I have a banana phone. And I'm taking the 49ers.
Yeah, I also want to be on the Niners, especially if Trent Williams play is going to eye that before I play them straight. But as I mentioned, they're going to be part of my teaser either way. And you talk about wanting to back Brock Purdy, Will. I want to fade Sam Darnold in a big spot. He was able to get it done against the Rams a few weeks ago in overtime, bring them back. But typically we see with him in these pressure games late in the season, he kind of folds a bit. So I prefer to be on the Brock Purdy side there with the Niners. If you're in the SportsLine Discord, which hopefully everybody watching this is, we gave out 49ers as the number 1 seed at plus 750 a few weeks ago. So that's what we're all going to be rooting for, the people who took that, try to cash in big with the Niners in this win here.
Thank you, Will Brinson, for bringing props. Hopefully we have more throughout the show. I'm going to go. Perfect. I'm going to go with the Seahawks here because of the edge in the trenches with the defense. And I know that Sam Darnold hasn't looked great, just as many picks as touchdowns over the last 2 games, 7 sacks over the last 2 games. But the good news is the Niners don't get sacks and they don't have picks, just 6 on the season. The Jets are the only team worse. So I think it's a good matchup for Sam Darnold to bounce back in this spot. Also incentives, a lot of incentives this week. Big money on the line. He is one of them. $2 million in incentives if he gets 3 touchdowns, 150 passing yards, a bump in his completion percentage and passer rating. I know the guy has a lot of money, but maybe some extra motivation there. I do think the Seahawks are getting respect on the road, laying 1.5 here for a reason, so I will back them to cover the